This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century. Greetings, family. Welcome to another wonderful, infotainment, edutainment edition of The Artivist Thinks, Thought Provocateur. I'm your host for this empowerment segment, Brother Ron, and we all be in it to win it. News-free Dixie for the 21st century. I hope y'all are enjoying yourselves as we wind down this year, 2020. Just had happy Thanksgiving. Like Dr. Randy Short would say, happy thanks stealing or happy misgivings. Actually, I really like the holiday spirit and cheer. This year has been pretty unusual due to the COVID pandemic, scandemic, epidemic, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. Been really an interesting time to be alive. Is anything but boring. If you are bored, then you are not really alive, because 2020 is anything but boring, very unpredictable. And I want to thank everybody out there, all the ladies and gents, scholars and laymen, boys and girls, to the wokish and the sleepish, to the people and the sheeple. This is your brother, Brother Ron, also known as R2C2H2, the artivist, coming with another wonderful edition of The Artivist Thinks, as I said before. But sometimes you got repetition is a form of learning. I know people said the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Really, that's repetition. It's called learning. That's repetition. Repetition is important. We try to learn and graphs, graphing with your hands, concepts, ideas, philosophy with your mind. So I pride myself on being a person who loves to heighten the contradictions, as they say, and to get the people to think for themselves, to research for themselves. Nobody should be held as a supreme oracle, not even I, because I can misspeak, I can mislead, I can misdirect, and not because I'm trying to do with intent, but out of ignorance, because I don't know everything. It's like to paraphrase President Harry Truman, who did not go to college, by the way. Harry Truman only had a high school diploma. And so it's interesting, but he said, the only thing new is the history that you don't know. Once again, the President Harry Truman, to paraphrase him, the only thing new is the history that you don't know. And people say, well, Ron, why are you always talking about history? You talk about politics, you always talk about history. Because history is never history. The past is never past. To echo a paraphrase from William Faulkner, a native Mississippian, the past is never past. So we are constantly living our history out. We are all living history. So this is what I want to talk about, because like I said, this is my platform. This is the We All Be platform. It's also the people's platform. And, I don't have no problem with criticisms or anything of that nature. Without critics or criticism, you won't have any success. It's important to be open to learning from everyone and everything, anytime and anywhere. So I am thankful. First and foremost, I want to thank, not first and foremost, but I wanted to say before I dive deep into the subject matter, I want to thank everybody who's been supporting with your thoughts and prayers and positivity, and also with your donations to the We All Be movement, because knowledge is the currency of the universe, but also I'm a human being. I have bills to pay, all that good stuff. Actually, it's been an interesting holiday for me, a time of much reflection and whatnot, because I actually, Wednesday night before the day of Thanksgiving, My phone got ran over on one of the busiest streets in Memphis. I actually phone fell out the car. I had my Bluetooth headset on because I heard when I lost the connection because it started beeping and beeping. Then all of a sudden it stopped beeping. So I had to turn around, park the car, walk up and down one of the busiest streets in all of Memphis in nighttime with no really aid, light, whatever, and found the phone, but unfortunately it was ran over by several cars. So I'm waiting to get it replaced. So I'm without a smartphone, without an iPhone right now. So over a holiday. So if you've been trying to reach out to me, texts and phone calls and whatnot, I'm not receiving them at the moment, but hopefully that will be rectified sometime next month, which will be this upcoming week. So keep me in your thoughts and prayer. But I want to thank everybody who's been donating, because your donations mean a lot. If you see me producing podcasts or shows or doing things that is empowering the people, I want to thank the folks who have believed in the mission, in my God work, for keeping this going, because you are pivotal. Because y'all don't understand or understand the power of you reaching out to me via text message or a phone call, leaving a voice message, or sending me an email, or give me a shout out on social media. Let me know that I'm on the right path. So I want to thank all the folks who have been reaching out to me recently, who've been listening for years. I had no idea, but thank you all for encouraging me, and know that the marathon continues and that the best is yet to come. So I want to talk about history. We're talking a lot about Black relationships, the Black family, Black people, Black women, Black men, Black males, Black females. And one of my goals as I march forward is to uplift our people, amplify in times like these. I want us to really acknowledge true unsung heroes and sheroes, race men and race women who have paid it forward, but sacrifices and contributions are not always well known by the people that they worked or served. You must love Black people in order to serve Black people, because a lot of us have a lot of self-hate, a lot of so-called toxicity. And my thing is, we got to expose that and look at the root causes of that, expose it for what it is, and then contradict and amplify, heighten the contradictions, then amplify the blessings. So this is part of my mission, and I'm not interested in getting everybody to understand that, or I don't need my truth to be validated by your ignorance. So I'm not interested in being a fan favorite, never have been a fan favorite or favorite, excuse me, but rather I do pride myself on being a people's champ. So what I want to talk about is a phenomenal Black woman who should be recognized more by our people, because I'm looking around. I'm all about the red pill life. I'm about that red pill life. It is what it is. A lot of y'all is about that blue pill world, but if we could get more of y'all to take the purple pill, I think we might have a fighting chance in this all, because I've been looking at, and let it be known that nobody has been declared the official winner of the 2020 presidential selection. Once again, nobody has been declared the official winner of the 2020 presidential selection. It's still up in the air. Donald Trump has not conceded anything, who is actually the current sworn-in president. He's the actual president at this moment as I speak. Donald Trump has not conceded. Votes are being recounted. Things are being contested. And the U.S. Supreme Court will have the final say. It looks like, maybe. We still got the electoral college coming up on December 14th, 2020. But, anything can happen between now, as I do this, wrapping up the end of November, and December 14th. Like I said, 2020 is anything but boring or predictable at this moment. So, so this is why it's important to have a counter narrative that will help you heighten the contradictions, and understanding that CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Associated Press, Reuters, they don't have the power to call this election. They just have the power to shape the narrative, to create perceptions and illusions. And like what Brother Malcolm X said, the media is the most powerful entity on the planet, because it influences us, I say influences. It influences and controls the minds of the masses. It controls what people view as reality. And you got, they say, 7 billion people on the planet. So, not counting for multiple personality disorders and schizophrenia, whatever, you got 7 billion different versions of this so-called reality. And where we intersect and all this other stuff is another interesting thing dealing with this matrix. But I want to talk about what Baba Dick Gregory, he always used to tell me, that mighty righteous ancestor used to tell him. By the way, shout out to his love of his life, sister Lillian Gregory. She's still with us. She just celebrated her life affirmation day on November 24th. Baba Gregory had his October 12th. You know, look at one of our We All Be videos. He talking about how to get the perfect mate or help mate or help meet, whatever as y'all want to call it. Birthdays should add up to the number 9. 9 is number of completion. For endings, of course. Dick was born October 12th, 1-2. So you got 1 plus 2 is 3. Lil was born November 24th. You got 24. 2 plus 4 is what? It's 6. 3 plus 6 equals 9. See how it works somewhere. Baba Dick was a very fascinating, beautiful brother whose presence is felt, is magnified in times like these, because he talked about he fears Trump's shadow, and a lot of y'all interpret that as being, well, he feared Trump. No, I believe he was talking about what was coming in the wake of a Trump presidency. He said that Trump will be the last president. And, you know, like I said, Biden is not official president-elect at this moment. So everything's up in the air. But Donald Trump, you know, speaking of the number 9, he was elected in the year 2016. You add up that year, it equals to 9. He is the 45th president. 4 plus 5 is 9. You see how it works. So I'm not going to get too deep in that today, but let's throw that out there. There's a lot of interesting things going on in the world. But I want to talk about what Dick said. He used to tell me all the time. He used to say all the time, that 2 of the most powerful forces in American history is the black church and the black woman. The black woman, very powerful. You know, people, it's interesting, like, you know, when we critique black women on my platform, it's fascinating. Some of my longtime black women listeners, you know, will reach out to me, DMs, phone calls, whatever. We discuss certain things. It's interesting, you know. People assume that, oh man, you going too hard on the sisters and all that stuff, and you're not going hard on the brothers. I think I'm very fair and balanced. I invite people to come on the show to share their point of view. I'm not interested in telling people how to think or how to express themselves. I pride myself on respecting the First Amendment, and also let it be known I have disclaimers that we don't represent the views, that the views of our guests or even me or even I are not representative of the views of the platform. The platform has no views. This is a platform that is used to amplify free thinking, critical thought, different narratives, counter narratives, things of that nature. So this is what this platform is. The platform is not, you know, interested in supporting any view. This is a platform to help to get the word out there about these different views, these diversity of views. So this is why I use what I do. And I pride myself on being part of this great narrative when it comes to black media excellence. I'm in Memphis, so Memphis plays a pivotal role in the history of black media. You know, the great A.L.L, they're currently trying to raise funds, like $250,000 to build A.L. statue in Memphis on Beale Street, near where her newspaper office used to be operating at First Baptist on Beale. First Bill Baptist, I think. Her newspaper office used to be there. As you can recall, if you are A.L. fans, I call her A.L. Fine. You know, she's like my Black History Dream Girls. She was ran out the South for telling the truth about slavery, not slavery, but lynchings and white terrorism. The real root cause of that. She was brave. She was maybe by 5'2" or 5'1", but she was known for carrying 2 pistols at all times on her person. But what really got her ran out the South for was exposing the truth about the nature of lynchings and whatnot, and how, you know, a lot of people know that a lot of people who were lynched were businessmen. You know, we talked about the Wilmington Race Massacre or Insurrection of 1898 on this platform, and that was all about, you know, putting black folks in their place, keeping black folks from obtaining political and economic power. Because if you got control of your politics and economics, you can be self-determined. You can help control your future and of your present. You can control the narrative. You control the resources. You can control your destiny. So when black folks gets a little taste of that, we always get a little taste and they always taking it back. So she was very prominent in exposing the truth about those lynchings in order to keep us in our so-called places, because she lost a friend, Thomas Moss. She was the godmother to his daughter in the infamous 1892 People's Grocery lynchings, or lynching at the curb, or lynchings at the curb. So Thomas Moss and two of his business associates were lynched, was kidnapped from jail and lynched before a captive white media. Yes, the white media reported their last words, and one of the last words of Thomas Moss was, "Tell my people they can't get any justice here to go west." So a lot of black folks left Memphis. Attn Wells reprinted his last words and doubled up on what he said by saying, "Yes, please leave, go west, get out of here." So a lot of black folks, actually 6,000 black people, left because of what Attn Wells was able to provide as the last words and testament of Thomas Moss. She amplified his message and got it to the people. 6,000 black folks left Memphis. A lot of them went out west, and a lot of them went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. Robert Church, the savior. Robert Church Sr., the savior of Memphis, arguably the first black millionaire of the South, the father of Mary Church Terrell, one of the first black women to get a college degree, highly educated, brilliant black woman. They say he helped invest in some of the real estate prospects in what became known as Black Wall Street out in Tulsa. But let it be known, there were numerous Black Wall Streets in Black America. Numerous places where black folks prosper. And like you look at Wilmington. Wilmington came before Black Wall Street and Rosewood. And we'll talk about some of these places and the Democratic white terrorism connection. I'm not for either party, like Brother Malcolm said in his last 2 years, though. It's kind of weird that a lot of black folks still vote Democrat, almost like it's a religious thing, almost at a 100% clip, for the last 55, 60 years. And change is going to come, and it's already came. And I know that the best is yet to come. So, as a black woman, I love Attn Wells. So, a lot of beautiful sisters. I want Attn Wells to be as respected by this generation as many of them respect Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B and all these other folks. They should get the same type of acclaim and stuff like that. These sisters, because Attn Wells, she loved black men. She loved them. She loved brothers. Some of our greatest black women leaders, they had a love for black men. They were in relationships with black men. Fannie Lou Hamer, she was in a relationship with a brother who held her down. Think about Mary Church Terrell. She was married to Robert Terrell. This guy was Harvard Law educated, was a black judge out in D.C. She helped desegregate D.C. after Woodrow Wilson resegregated D.C. That's Mary Church Terrell. Or Terrell is how you pronounce his name, but Terrell, whatever. I'll correct me in the comment section. I don't care. But yes, I talk about black women positively, and also black women have a lot of power. They have a lot of leverage. Attn Wells was a school teacher here in Memphis. She lived in Memphis about 10 years approximately. People talk about Rosa Parks, but Attn Wells refused to move from a section of the train car. She won her case in court, was awarded a $400 settlement, then it was overturned in Tennessee Supreme Court. They overturned the ruling. This is like this happened in 1885, so this is basically like it's happened around 1884, 1885. Rosa Parks then was 55, so it's about 70 years before Rosa Parks that Attn Wells did her thing. So a good book on Attn Wells is to read her own words, right? Also, I'll recommend the Memphis Diary that was edited by Dr. Marion DeCostas Willis, a brilliant scholar and historian here who lives in Memphis. Stick out among us. She was married to some brilliant men, Russell Sugarman and A.W. Willis, both lawyers, prominent civil rights lawyers in Memphis, progressive brothers. And she was married to both of these guys, and they used to be in a law practice together. Now, that's an interesting story. But she was really a fine sister. fine mind and fine looking back in her time, and she still looks good. She holds up well, even in her, in her older years. So she's a good class act of a woman. But she helped edit Memphis out of the Wells Memphis Diary. So you should check that out because it gives you a glimpse into the inner workings and thoughts and things that concern Sister Ida B. Wells in her 20s, because she lost her parents during the yellow fever epidemic back in the late 1870s. So she's born into slavery July 16, 1862, and she loses both of her parents in Holly Springs, and she's at 16 taking care of her brothers and sisters, about 5 of them, including Ida. I think she's raising 5 brothers and sisters on her own at the age of 16, and she becomes a school teacher. And she was born in slavery, and then she becomes an investigative journalist. And not only that, probably one of the first women investigative journalists in the country, and she owns her own newspaper. She owns her own newspaper company, publishing company. Man, that's a very progressive thing. And like I talk about, some of the most literate people in America after the Civil War within just a certain short number of years were black people. And even today, like, women are considered some of the most educated people in the country. Here, since like Ida Wells, she definitely was very educated, and she came out of slavery. So black people, we are powerful. And she had a newspaper office in her church, First Baptist on Bill, or Bill First Baptist, however they call it. But if you come to Memphis, that church is still standing. But she was operating her newspaper offices out of that church, from my understanding, from my research. And like, it goes back to what Bobby D. Gregory once again said: two of the most powerful forces in American history, the black woman and the black church. And Ida B. Wells shows that powerful relationship and how it affects the culture and the narrative by her pioneering crusading work, because she basically led a lynching crusade by herself for years, a one-woman movement. She took that across the pond over to Europe. I mean, this is one black woman doing all this awareness about what they were doing to black people in America. She also advocated the Second Amendment. She believed in arming yourselves as black people. Like, to paraphrase her, a Winchester rifle should have a place of honor in every black home. So she believed in self-defense. She believed in freedom of speech. So, I know y'all talking about Cardi B, all them talking about WAP and all this stuff, and they express themselves and they being vulgar and all this. They unladylike behavior, very aggressive, maybe some type of masculine confusion of gender roles, because, should it be Meg the Mayor and not Meg the Stallion? I'm just curious. Like, a mare is a female horse, a stallion is a male horse. So, I mean, it gets down to that. People say, well, people trying to tell me, how the brothers say she's so thick and all that. What they say about the brothers then? They call a woman a feminine creature, something masculine, a stallion. It goes back with Dick Gregory talking about how black women are the only women on the planet that is okay to call, I got a strong black woman, or she's a strong black woman. What's wrong with being a feminine black woman? Being, feminine lady, a little bit of vulnerability. I'm not necessarily fragile, but to call your woman strong and to call your car beautiful. You call your car beautiful and you call your woman strong. It's like what Dick talked about also, the beauty salon, the beauty shop. You go to get beautified, made up, illusions, deception. So I don't want, I'm talking about Ida Wells. I'm going to be talking about another black woman of renown, and I'm going to get to that. But, I think what's bringing this out for me is all this talk and celebration about this Kamala Harris character, this make-believe black woman. Y'all want to think she's black, but she's Asian American one minute, she's Hindu Brahmin this minute, and I'm gonna tell you, she showed her true colors because she's trying to get 500,000 of her closest relatives over here across the pond to America to be the replacement for black people. What black folks got to understand, and at this time right now, when you vote Democrat, you voting for your replacements, whether it be machines or people. When you vote Democrat as a black American, as a foundational black American, as an American descendant of slaves, as a black indigenous American, you are voting for your replacements. There is nothing that they are giving us that is to our benefit and speaks to our leverage as so-called indigenous black people. You understand? So y'all celebrating Kamala, comparing her to Ruby Bridges, comparing her to Rosa Parks. She's not on those levels. So what she have done is take advantage of black people to lift herself up to the close to the this heartbeat away from the most powerful office in the world, from the most powerful position in the world. Joe Biden look like, like one of them ghosts that visited Scrooge on Christmas Eve. He don't look all well right now. It's weird to me that a person so uninspiring, so uncharismatic, whose oratory skills are in question right now in this age. Very like, how you say this guy got more votes than anybody in the history of the selection, which is a falsehood. And it's funny how people are willing to believe this based on their emotional dislike of Agent Orange, as y'all call him. Agent Cheeto, President Cheeto. I don't know. I don't have a problem with Trump. He has not done the type of damage to black people as a Joe Biden has done with his crime bills and other things. I mean, Joe Biden is a neo-Dixiecrat. He's been trained by the original Dixiecrats. He's the son of Eastland, the political son of Eastland, Thurman, Byrd, Wallace, Faubus. The list goes on and on. He was their political protege, their fruit from their trees. So, no, I don't have any issues. And y'all can do your own research. Take a look. It's all online. But yeah, they're trying to build a statue. Hopefully, that will get done by next year. They're trying to raise $250,000 right now for the statue of Ida B. Wells on Beale Street near First Bill Baptist, or First Baptist on Bill, whatever they call it, the church. She worked at a newspaper office, and you got to remind, she was blessed to be out of town when they destroyed the newspaper office, and because of the truth she was revealing in her newspaper. So she, left the South. She was ran out the South. She was ran out the education, on the miseducation system by black people, because she dared to say that black teachers and students should be treated with the same respect as the white teachers and students, that black teachers should get the same pay as white teachers. And they ran out the school system. The black folks did, and then the white folks ran out the South. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to support that initiative. And we'll talk more about the Ida B. Wells statue. And I even have some people who are key in raising awareness and monies for that statue on the We All Be platform very soon. But I just want to encourage everybody out there to amplify your voices right now while you still can practice and exercise the Second Amendment, because we are living in interesting times. Like what Joe Biden said, we are heading for a dark winter in so many ways. Fascism is on the rise in America, and I'm not talking about Trump. It's like when you become too liberal, sometimes you become a fascist. Which is interesting. It's like the conservatives and liberals have reversed roles over the decades. Very subtle in a lot of ways, but helped by media manipulation, because this is a mockingbird, mass mainstream fake news media. And y'all can look up Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA infiltrated the media infrastructure, the media industrial complex, with their own agents and also through money. It's just the CIA is interesting. They got their own private Air Force. CIA ain't what it's supposed to have been originally. It's really was helped created by President Truman. He didn't go to college. He went to high school. He graduated from high school, but he was not a college graduate. And that's interesting. He's the guy that decides, okay, let's drop the A-bomb on the Japs. And he went to sleep probably for 8 hours with no problem. His conscience not affected by this decision to drop this bomb on yellow people. Now, they was not going to drop the A-bomb on Europe, but, the yellow people are expendable, right? So this stuff affects them for generations upon, the effects of that initial bomb droppings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, it's funny how they, you don't know how to pronounce the word. They say Hiroshima. Some people say Hiroshima. Some people say Hiroshima. And they're both right. And in Nagasaki, on these populated centers in Japan, they dropped. They didn't care. Truman lost no sleep over that. And he helped create the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, which was the successor. This predecessor was the Office of Strategic Services. You had a baseball player, I believe he was Yale educated, Mo Bird. He was a catcher in Major League Baseball. He was a spy for the Office of Strategic Services, which became the CIA. Y'all should check out the fictionalized version of the history of the CIA from Robert De Niro's movie The Good Shepherd, starring Matt Damon. It talks about the origins of the CIA, Spooksville, USA, Spooksville, the real spooks, right? And just acknowledge the Kennedy assassination, all that stuff. But I'm just dropping gems. Look up Operation Mockingbird and check it out, and you can understand why the media is saying that Joe Biden is the president-elect, because Joe Biden represents the interests of the globalists. And the CIA is in the business of manipulating narratives as well as rigging elections. So that's something y'all need to check out. And also, I talked about one of my last podcasts. I talked about how America and British intelligence interfered in the democracy in the Middle East, the so-called Middle East, because really it's Africa, with Iran back in the 50s. They overthrew a legit democratically elected government, and they replaced it with a theocracy. So all that Muslim stuff in over there in the Middle East and Iran, place like that, that's due to the CIA and British intelligence, among other agencies like the Mossad, manipulating, interfering, coup d'etats, rig elections, overthrow, coup d'etat. So that's Operation Ajax, when Iran wanted to control its oil industry and take out the hands of BP, British Petroleum. Yeah, the BP that y'all get gas from when y'all in the city and all across the country, that BP, British Petroleum, they wanted to get control of their oil reserves and their oil industry from them. They want to nationalize their own resources. If you look at the history of this planet as it relates to the West, anytime a non-Western country wants to have some type of self-determination, that's a problem with so-called Western civilization. So even though it might do it in a very transparent and ethical way, you have no right to practice manifest destiny in your own country like the white folks do. You understand what I'm saying? When Woodrow would say to make the world safe for democracy, it was actually to make the world safe for white hypocrisy. To make the world safe for white hypocrisy. You had somebody like Ho Chi Minh, who's leader of the Viet Cong resistance, right? He tried to meet with Woodrow Wilson during the Paris Peace Accords, I believe, just back in the 1919, right? After World War I, he was trying to have an audience with Woodrow Wilson because he admired America. The Vietnam Declaration of Independence was based off the American Declaration of Independence. Ho Chi Minh used to come over to America, just listen to Marcus Garvey. Yet that Marcus Mosiah Garvey, speak in Harlem and other places. So, imagine if Woodrow Wilson actually heard them out back in 1919. And Kennedy realized the mistake that we was making after the French. It's kind of like, we should learn from Russia going into Afghanistan, or we should learn from Germany going to Russia back in World War II. These folks got these ideas of empire, and no empire lasts forever, and some become ruined faster than others. So America is very interesting. American experience and experiment is very interesting. But I'm getting all over the place, right? Let me get back to the black women. I want to talk about a black woman in particular, Eunice Carter. Eunice Carter. Remember that name? I talked about Sister Carter in one of my latest podcasts from Sunday, right? Y'all enjoy. I think it's the one where Trump is JFK, and also the ones I did, Brothers Gonna Work It Out. We'll do some more of those coming up. My thing is, I want to connect with brothers across the diaspora or across the country and see what's going on in their neck of the woods and talk about it. I don't believe in anything being taboo. People say, well, we should talk about certain things. I mean, why not? There's no such thing as privacy. You can't even talk on your cell phone or watch your laptop. They watching you. NSA, Patriot Act, all them. Even when you talk to TV, your TV watching you. Somebody's watching me. Somebody feel like somebody watching me. They're always watching. So get used to not having any privacy. Thanks, Patriot Act. Thanks, Joe Biden, Democrats, and Republicans. Thank you all, for this reality that we're living in. And I think I called her Stephanie Carter a couple of times. I want to correct myself because y'all, I mean, white folks can lie all day about Joe Biden being president, but Brother Ron get a person's name wrong or a date wrong, you know. Like I said, what's his name? Martin Scorsese made a movie Irishman. He got people death dates wrong and everything. That man had a $200 million budget, from my understanding. He could have hired some researchers, but he didn't do that. He just kept wrong dates. They could even kind of go back after they put the movie out and correct some of the stuff he got wrong. But, you know, it is what it is. What I'm saying is, we people, humans, make errors, mistakes as it comes with the territory. But, you know, my intent is not to mislead, but to empower people to think for self, do for self, know thyself. So her grandson actually is named Stephen Carter. He's an Ivy League professor, well-educated family. It's a brilliant family. You know, black folks, we got impressive bloodlines. You know how Dave Chappelle talked about his people. We all got those type of stories. We just got to do our family history and know the research. Like my family, I got amazing family trees. Not just a family tree, but trees. You know, we come from different people. You know, it's not just the famous relatives, like, you know, old school. It's cool to be related to Curtis Mayfield or Sister Rosetta Tharpe or, you know, Marvin Gaye or, you know, all them people. But I love the fact in my ancestors, I could name the names of ancestors that fought in the American Revolutionary War, in the Civil War, World War II, of course. Both of my grandfathers, Drew Brees, eat your heart out, man. Both my grandfathers fought in World War II too. You know, World War One, like I said, Civil War. So it is good to know this information to understand that we are here for a reason. Nobody's here by mistake. Whoever's here right now, you be listening to the words that come out of my mouth. You here for a reason, and you listening to these words for a reason. Be the family historian that you need to be, so your kids can know that you stand on the shoulders of giants. You know, they don't have to be famous, all this stuff. Just know who your ancestors are and the price they pay, and know that the sacrifices that they made were bigger than just so-called voting in rigged elections. Our ancestors did not die just to vote in rigged elections. They died for liberation, self-determination. They died for their dreams. They died because they chose to fight, and they were willing to accept the fate, of death. The fight, liberation. What Patrick Henry say? Give me liberty or give me death. You know, fight for what you want, and be willing to not only just live but also die for it. So this is what you should learn from our ancestors, our righteous ancestors. So that's very important. But I want to talk about Eunice Carter, because a grandson, Stephen Carter, like I said, Ivy League professor. I believe he's a professor at Yale University, also a prolific writer. And I'm definitely going to plan to reach out to him. He wrote a great biography on his amazing grandmother called Invisible. It's a long time, but basically talk about how she took down the most powerful mob boss in America, one of the most powerful criminal masterminds in American history. That's Charles Lucky Luciano. This is a black woman who came up with the blueprint to take down the most powerful gangster in America at that time, back in the 1930s during the Great Depression. And her grandson wrote a book about her amazing life, but she's not a household name like she should be. And on We All Be, we're going to talk about her because we want y'all to make sure she's a household name in black households. We want to make sure that y'all know about her, because I don't want y'all to be uplifting Kamala Harris when she made her career putting down black folks and putting black folks in prison, and not even acknowledging being so-called black only when it's convenient for her to be black. But I want to talk about sisters who are lawyers who actually did great things for black folks and try to help uplift the race. I mean, look, Eunice Carter was a prosecutor on a DA under Thomas Dewey. Yeah, that Thomas Dewey, who almost was killed by Dutch Schultz, who put Lucky Luciano in jail because of the work that Eunice Carter did and give him the foundation. His biggest victory, which helped him get to the governor's mansion in New York and helped him become a two-time Republican nominee for president back in 1944 and 48. You know, there's a famous photo of Harry Truman holding up a newspaper saying Dewey defeats Truman, but Truman ended up winning. Now, if you think about what's going on with the Democrats now and all this other stuff with this misselection so far of 2020. Maybe they rigged the election for Truman, and maybe Dewey really did win. I don't know. Dewey did have that mustache thing going on. I think people prefer a clear cut president during that time. Truman didn't have no mustache, no beard or goatee, but Dewey wore that. He wore that mustache. Maybe if he ran back in the 1900s, the early 1900s, like William Howard Taft and Franklin Roosevelt, William Howard Taft had to be the last president to wear facial hair. And he was vice president under Roosevelt, but they split the Republican ticket so they could bring in the Federal Reserve and Internal Revenue Service. And I talked about that a couple of times on some of these podcasts. But yeah, she helped secure his major victory when he's able to become governor of New York State. Thomas Dewey actually went to law school, Columbia Law School, with Paul Robeson. But Paul Robeson, man, if he was born white, he probably would have been president. Man was brilliant, speak 20-something different languages, all-American football player, lawyer, actor, amazing singer, humanitarian, Paul Robeson. So they were classmates at Columbia in the same law class. So it's a little black history y'all need to know about. But Eunice Carter comes from a very amazing family. Not only is her grandson very accomplished professor and novelist or writer, but you look at her mom and all that stuff, and I'll read some stuff about Sister Eunice Carter. And I know I'm just like, man, it took you all this time to talk about this sister. Well, just freestyling. And then I'm just like, Ida Wells and Eunice Carter. I labeled it like that when I edit. So, got a lot on my mind. I'm just glad people out here speak of their minds. I want to encourage all you brothers and sisters, especially ones who be calling me and talking to me for hours on the phone. Why don't you share that with the people? Because everybody has a right to exist, as far as I'm concerned. And you should want your voice to be heard. Because it's too many tools out here, too many chances for you, opportunities for us to have to get our voices heard, to go silent at a time like this. You want to hear your silent, because silent is to be silent right now is to be complicit, is to be consenting of the madness that is happening all around, the bread and circuses. And I'm going to read Eunice Roberta Hunton Carter, born July 16th, 1899. Now, Ida Wells, born July 16th, 1862. What is it about that date? They both cancers. So what is it about July 16th that these powerful black women are born? They do amazing life work, crusaders for justice. They ain't anything but quiet. Both born July 16th, Ida Wells and Eunice Carter. But she was an American lawyer. She was one of New York's first female African-American lawyers and one of the first prosecutors of color in the United States. She was active in the Pan-African Congress and in United Nations committees to advance the status of women in the world. She led a massive prostitution racketeering investigation, building a case and strategy that allowed New York District Attorney Thomas Dewey to successfully charge mafioso kingpin Charles Lucky Luciano with compulsory prostitution. So that's who she is, right? That's what they say. There's a little amazing little summary of her in a paragraph. This woman had a very profound life, but let's look at who her peoples be, right? Her family, who her mama and daddy be. Well, Carter was born in Atlanta in 1899, the daughter of William Alphaeus Hunton Sr., founder of the Black division of the YMCA. That's the Young Men's Christian Association. YMCA. That's a data. Data was a trailblazer. And Addie Waits Hunton, a social worker. Both were college educated. Think about it. It's back in the late 19th century. Both college educated. Dave Chappelle talking about how well educated his people were on both sides of the family, right? So education is a hallmark of black excellence, right? So what is the problem about being smart? To be smart is to be white. Not to be smart is to be smart, So we got to teach that type of stuff, right? So her paternal grandfather, Stanton Hunton, purchased his freedom from slavery before the American Civil War. Wow. Self-determination. Her brother, W. Alphaeus Hunton Jr., was an author, academic, and activist noted for his involvement with the Council on African Affairs and promotion of Pan-African identity. So all folks were very heavy into politics and controlling their own destiny. They came out of their grandfather, her grandfather. He brought this freedom before the Civil War. So these folks believe in self-determination through the control of politics and activism. This is running the bloodline. Okay. The family moved from Atlanta to Brooklyn, New York after the 1906 Atlanta race riot. They attended local schools. Their mother, Addie Hunton, was active with the NAACP, that's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and the YMCA, achieving national status. She was selected as one of two women to go to France during World War I to check on the condition of United States black servicemen. So it's a couple things. The Atlanta race massacre of 1906 is an interesting thing to deal with. Once again, the nature of these massacres, a lot of times they're started by police misconduct for the most part, or a lack of the system to protect the civil liberties of a unprotected group of people, most notably black Americans, right? So Atlanta race riots are interesting, or massacre. You got all these white people killing black folks. The numbers are always larger than what they tell us. And for a long time, the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta would not acknowledge what happened in Atlanta back in, I want to say, September of 1906. But on the centennial, they did acknowledge it, and now it's taught in the schools, supposedly. They teach the Atlanta Race Massacre of 1906 in the schools. And that's something maybe needs to be a separate podcast about. Because you had black folks, once again, thriving black people, very successful black. You had a dude named Alonzo Herndon who owned several barbershops, and he catered to a high-class white clientele. Said some of the most powerful white men in the state of Georgia patronizing his barbershops. Right, this guy was wealthy, a black man who I believe was a former slave, and also he started the Atlanta Life Mutual Insurance Company, something like that. Atlanta Life Insurance Company. And I think it still exists to this day, because his only son, actually ended up succeeding his father in the business, because Alonzo Herndon died in 1927. So his son made it to a multi-million dollar business. And Alonzo Herndon's home in Atlanta is a historical landmark. So next time I go to Atlanta, I'm going to have to check out his home and pay my respects. But like in Wilmington, you have successful black folks own businesses, had some little political clout, and they were ran out of town. A lot of them were killed. You even had a situation, we had black folks trying to arm themselves, like 250 armed black people. They were dispersed or arrested by the police. Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois was a professor down in Atlanta at the college down there. He was actually strapped and armed. That W.E.B. Du Bois, that one. He was strapped up too. They was ready to go to war for self-defense purposes. But it's a thing about Negroes with guns, right? So y'all should check out the Atlanta Race Massacre. So they ran her family not only out of Georgia, not only out of Atlanta, but also Georgia. They had to run our way up north, right, to escape that madness. And also, they said mom was one or two women, both black women, went to France during World War I to check on the condition of United States black servicemen. So now I researched and did a book on James Reese Europe, the band leader of the Harlem Hellfighters Jazz Band, from the 369th Regiment, formerly the New York National Guard 15th Regiment, that was disowned by the United States, by the American Expeditionary Forces. They were disowned by their own government. These are black doughboys. They call them doughboys, American soldiers that went over in World War I. But these black soldiers, these black American citizens, were disowned by their own government, and they were adopted by the French, and arguably became the most decorated fighting unit from the so-called American Expeditionary Forces. They was highly decorated, brilliant, under fire. James Reese Europe was not only a music pioneer. He started one of the first important black musician unions in the country, the Clef Club Musician Union, back in 1905. But also, he was credited being the first black man to lead troops into battle during World War One. And he basically brought jazz to Europe. His last name was Europe. He was from Mobile, Alabama, but raised in Washington, D.C. Was a big fan and promoter of W.C. Handy's music, and fan of the man and of his music. So he popularized actually jazz overseas. And he survived the war only to be killed by his drummer on stage. You think about these versus battles, right? With Jeezy and Gucci Mane, and people getting on Gucci Mane thinking Jeezy's the better man. I'm a fan of both their music, but didn't Gucci survive a home invasion slash hit on his life, allegedly originating from Jeezy's camp? And yet y'all praising Jeezy and y'all say, oh, Gucci's overreacting? No, I don't think so. But that's just neither here or there. But you got, there's nothing new. 1919, at a concert in Boston at Mechanics Hall, James Rich Europe is stabbed by one of his drummers in the neck. He bleeds to death, dies at the age of 39. That's the same age of Malcolm X and Dr. King, and was the first black person to be given a public funeral in New York City's history. And he's buried in Arlington Cemetery. This is James Rich Europe. World War One, and I'm bringing all that up to say that when I was researching James Rich Europe, I heard about a situation. The reason why they was, the Eunice Carter mom was summoned over there, among other people, including Emmett Scott, who was the personal assistant to Booker T. Washington and Tuskegee. He was also sent, among other people, to investigate rumors of how black soldiers were being treated during World War One. And this is nothing unusual. I read about rumors that saying that the American Red Cross nurses were allowing black soldiers to die of their wounds and infections. They were not even trying to treat the black soldier who was dying for their freedoms with the respect that they deserve. So I heard about things that said the American Red Cross allegedly were allowing these black soldiers to die. That's why one of the reasons why Eunice Carter mom was over there to see what was going on. So better run. Is that outrageous? Not necessarily so. You had a person like Charles Hamilton Houston, very brilliant Charles Hamilton Houston, dean of Howard Law, Howard University Law School, the Jegna of Thurgood Marshall. He was almost lynched in France in full uniform. He was an officer, almost lynched by white American doughboys because the women prefer the black soldiers over the white boys. This is what this rumor about monkey tails, right? Is the black soldiers had monkey tails, so they were more interested in the monkey tails than were in the white soldiers. And the white soldiers were mad and said, they're about to lynch this man in his uniform. This guy, architect of Brown v. Board, of protege Thurgood Marshall. That guy, he almost lost his life at the hands of Americans, fellow soldiers during World War One. So take a look. It's all online. So it was serious about how they were mistreating or treating black soldiers during that time. So Eunice Carter came from an amazing family line. Folks were very much involved in the politics and affairs of not only of America but also of black people. And it doesn't imply that they're Garveyites, but I'm sure that they had a respect for someone like Marcus Garvey, who was definitely a Pan-Africanist, who talked about, going back to the motherland and all this stuff, who also was a follower of Booker T. Washington, who also gets character assassinated a lot by people who don't do the research. But anyway, so Eunice graduated from Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts, receiving a bachelor's and a master's degree. After a brief time as a social worker, she decided to study law. She became the first black woman to receive a law degree from Fordham University in New York City. In mid-May 1933, Eunice Carter passed the New York bar exam. So it said, Carter soon established a career in both law and international politics. In 1935, Carter became the first black woman assistant district attorney in the state of New York. As assistant DA, she determined that mafia boss Lucky Luciano must be involved in prostitution. Carter then put together a massive prostitution racketeering case that eventually implicated Luciano. She convinced New York District Attorney Thomas Dewey, her boss, to personally prosecute the case. Luciano was convicted and served 10 years and then was deported. The conviction, was described by Luciano biographer Tim Newark as a landmark in legal history, as it was the first against a major organized crime figure for anything other than tax evasion. The case generated national fame for Dewey, which he rode to the election as the governor of New York. He also made two unsuccessful runs for the White House, one against President Harry Truman. Dewey benefited from Carter's prosecutor skills and had genuine respect for her. She frequently accompanied him to political events in Harlem and elsewhere, and reporters noted that she offered him advice. Oh, that's interesting, right? That's very interesting. Active in the Pan-African Congress in the 1920s, Carter later became active in the United Nations, serving on committees that advocated, improving the status of women. In addition to her work for the UN, she also served on the executive committee of the International Council of Women, an organization with representatives from 37 countries. See, why is this woman not talked about in black households? She should be a household name. There should be movies already made about this woman. But she was a real hidden figure. Like, her accomplishments were not really celebrated during her lifetime because they gave the white man all the credit, right? Her boss, Thomas Dewey, who really rode her coattails to, or whatever, high heels, whatever, to political success. And let me read something else to show you how brilliant her strategy was in bringing down Luciano, the blueprint. Because Lucky Luciano, like I talk about, he was captured right in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I told y'all that Hot Springs, Arkansas was a paradise, was a gangsters paradise, right? All the people from Al Capone, Meyer Lansky, all them people used to come to Hot Springs, Arkansas to vacation. But that's where they caught Lucky Luciano when he was on the lam. They caught him down in Hot Springs. And also the person who ran Hot Springs for decades was a guy I call known as Oni Madden. Oni Madden ran it, known as Killer. Now, he was an Irishman from England. I know when y'all pointed out, y'all, but whatever. At least I'm glad y'all researched it and posted it. Yeah, he was an Englishman or Irishman, from England. But he grew up in New York, right? He was used to run the Cotton Club. Now, what people don't know is that before it became the Cotton Club, it used to be called the Deluxe Club, I believe. And it used to be owned by Jack Johnson. Yeah, that's Jack Johnson, first black heavyweight champion of the world. So Jack Johnson owned what became known eventually as the Cotton Club. I guess they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. I don't know. I wasn't there. But, yes, Oni Madden, the Killer. Yeah, the Irishman, right? Oni Madden, yeah. So he ran Hot Springs. But, yeah, it caught Lucky. But let me show you how detailed and thorough this sister was in terms of her contribution to Thomas Dewey landing a big fish like Lucky Luciano. And also another thing people got to understand, the reason why Lucky Luciano was able to get out in 10 years because he worked with the government, with the U.S. Navy, to keep the docks safe in New York, to keep it from being sabotaged by the Nazis back in the 40s. So he's able to work a deal with the government because, the sentence he got, for white slavery charges, he had one of the largest, prostitution rings in New York and New Jersey at the time. They was able to connect him to running one of the largest, prostitution rings in American history, New Jersey, New York. And it was because this black woman doing her due diligence and flipping prostitutes and other people to spill the beans on the operation. But Lucky was sentenced to anywhere between 30 to 50 years in prison. So he was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison. And the irony of it all is that, he stopped Dutch Schultz, the Dutchman, Dutch Schultz, that movie Hoodlum. It's a great movie, very entertaining, holds up today. Not historically accurate in a lot of ways, but it's Hollywood, what you expect. But it isn't, it shows Thomas Dewey being on the take. I don't know he really was on the take. He was about cleaning up corruption. That's why he took on Lucky Luciano and even Wall Street sometimes. But Lucky was sentenced to 30 to 50 years. He made a deal with the government. After World War II, they released him. They deported him to Italy. Now, my Uncle Frenchie, James French, who founded and owns the Charleston Chronicle, which is, from my understanding, the oldest black-owned newspaper in the state of South Carolina. He said when he was in the Navy, he actually had a spaghetti dinner with Lucky Luciano in Naples. And my uncle is probably the most interesting man in the world. He's 94 years young, and I hope he can stay around as long as he wants. He's an interesting guy. I had a chance to meet him on his 87th birthday of all birthdays, but wishing him well, to him and the family. But he told me that he actually has spaghetti dinner with Lucky Luciano in Naples, Italy, and that he just happy to have dinner with some Americans to hear about what's going on stateside. So I know Lucky Luciano's dead. You can't say yeah or nay, but hey, Uncle Frenchie, interesting dude. But and I say my Uncle Frenchie also, he's from Kansas City, Kansas. So he actually grew up with Charlie Parker and Ed Dwight, the first black astronaut candidate for NASA. So, and also a celebrated sculptor. Now he does amazing sculptures. This is Ed Dwight. So he actually grew up with my uncle and my paternal grandmother out in Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri. So yeah, I want to read my more description what she actually provided in terms of Dewey and capturing Lucky Luciano. I think it's very important to give her propers. Y'all should get the biography written by her grandson on her life called Invisible. It's worth checking out. And like I said, so much I want to do. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'd be overwhelmed with all the stuff that come through me and stuff. I want to share so much with you all, but I'm only one person. So it's very encouraging when y'all send me, a lot of love and support and positive vibrations keep me going a little bit. Because so much I want to do. Like I'm sure like a lot of you all. But I just want to break down the amazing support she gave to Thomas Dewey in apprehending Lucky Luciano. And read some. Dewey's legal team turned their attention to Lucky Luciano. Assistant DA Eunice Carter oversaw investigations into the prostitution racketeering. She raided 80 houses of prostitution in the New York City area and arrested hundreds of prostitutes and madams. Carter had developed trust with many of these women, and through her coaching, many of the arrested prostitutes, some of whom told of being beaten and abused by mafia thugs, were willing to testify to avoid prison time. 3 implicated Luciano as controller of organized prostitution in the New York, New Jersey area, one of the largest prostitution rings in American history. Carter's investigation was the first to link Luciano to a crime. Dewey prosecuted the case, and in the greatest victory of his legal career, he won the conviction of Luciano for the prostitution racket with a sentence of 30 to 50 years on June 18, 1936. Wow. So really, Dewey owed his biggest political victory or legal victory to a black woman. Now imagine if she was white and male. She could have been mayor of New York, governor, even run for president, because Dewey ended up becoming governor of New York and ended up running for president twice, unsuccessful. But imagine if this woman, this black woman, who grandfather purchased his freedom, her mama and daddy and them, all them amazing contributions and stuff, credit to their race, true race men and women. Imagine if she was a white man, the notoriety she would have gotten. Think about this. They would have named airports after her. She have statues in schools and stuff named after her, bridges and all type parks. There's nothing really to honor this amazing woman for what she did for America. I mean, she put her life on the line. You understand what I'm saying? Her life was on the line. She was the brains behind the operation, but she don't get barely a footnote. I mean, she got a biography from her grandson, of course, and that speaks of itself, his success. I mean, very accomplished family, but she should be a household name. Y'all, a lot of us come on Kamala Harris. Kamala made her career putting black folks behind prison bars, on death row, withholding evidence, locking up mothers whose children were delinquents from school. She made her career exploiting, undermining, destroying the black family. This woman came from a very strong black family that survived slavery, race massacres, to make these amazing contributions to the world. And she's not celebrated like she should be. To me, she should be on the same level as a Cardi B and Meg the Stallion. Not in turn. When I mean that, I'm talking about notoriety, celebrity. They should have had several TV shows about this sister, like The Untouchables or something like that. And I mean, Black history is better than science fiction or Hollywood movie, because when you tell the truth about Black people, it's unbelievable. We the real superheroes and sheroes. Y'all talk about y'all love Lovecraft Country. Well, tell the truth about this sister. This is better than watching a season of Lovecraft Country, and Lovecraft Country is a great show. But tell the truth about Black people, it will free the spirit. Look at the achievements of her people that came before her and after her. When you grow up knowing who your people are and their achievements and their contributions, nobody can tell you nothing to undermine your momentum to greatness. You understand what I'm saying? If we know our family roots and stuff and trees, you know how powerful we be as a people. Now we're waking up because the contradictions have been heightened, right? About the slavery thing, about the indigenous thing, the FBA, Foundational Black Americans, A.L.L, transatlantic slave trade, how much is real or false, and all this other stuff. But now it's time that we start planting these seeds in ourselves as well as our children, so we can move forward. Because there's no reason why we can't achieve at a high level. I'm gonna give you this one family of this Black excellence throughout the generations. This is incredible. Like I said, I want her name to be amplified. Eunice Carter. I won't never make the mistake of calling her Stephanie Carter again. But I really was conflating, I guess, her Stephen Carter, her grandson name with her name. But Eunice Carter. Say her name. Eunice Carter. Don't give me Kamala when I can have a Eunice Carter who was proud to be Black. She stood for Pan-Africanism. She stood for women. Proud to be a woman, proud to be Black, but knew that race was very important in the game. She was a race woman. Let's see her name. And it's interesting by Sister Eunice that in the book, from my understanding, her grandson made the claim that she had an extensive entanglement with the great Fletcher Henderson. And like I said, man, Fletcher Henderson to me is like the Elijah Muhammad of Black music, of Black jazz. To me, he really invented the jazz orchestra, the large jazz orchestra back in the 20s. He also was the blueprint for Benny Goodman. They always call him some white dude the king of rock and roll and all this stuff, but they call Benny Goodman the king of swing back in the 30s. And Benny Goodman wasn't even the most swingingest guy or orchestra around. I gotta give it up to the guy that got this shirt I made, drawing Jimmy Lunsford. He had the most popular swing band of the 30s and 40s. By the way of Fulton, Mississippi, Denver, Colorado, Memphis, Tennessee, band director at Manassas High School back in the 20s. Left Memphis 1930 with his best high school students, and 4 years later, they had the house band, the Cotton Club. They become the number one attraction in the Apollo Theater for a whole decade. But Jimmy Lunsford had the distinctive two beat. But even Glenn Miller wanted to be Jimmy Lunsford. He said Jimmy Lunsford had the best of all bands. He said Duke is great, and Basie is remarkable, or Count is remarkable, but Lunsford tops them both. Had a phenomenal show presence, and y'all should look up Jimmy Lunsford Orchestra 1936. Get that film clip of Jimmy Lunsford, 10 minutes is worth it. It's amazing. Like his presentation, his show was made for TV, but he died so young and under questionable circumstances. But we'll be honoring Jimmy Lunsford virtually this year, and y'all look out for the Jimmy Lunsford Jamboree Festival virtual edition for 2020 coming up in mid-December. So, like I said, I got so much I want to share with you all. Everything I do ain't gonna go viral, but I want to be amplified. And I want the things that I do. Make sure y'all make them household names. These people that I'm talking about, like a Jimmy Lunsford, who gave back to Black people. It's like the folks that really care about us, we forget about them. It's like Dr. Randy Short said, we love our traitors, but we hate our heroes, right? So these are heroes and sheroes like Eunice Carter, Ida B. Wells, Jimmy Lunsford, Fletcher Henderson. Like I said, he invented the jazz orchestra. Basically, he was from Georgia. He came from a very educated family. He was college educated himself, but he got into the music business. But when I spoke of Benny Goodman, his key arranger was Fletcher Henderson. The stuff that Fletcher Henderson pioneered in the 20s, he allowed Benny Goodman to access in the 30s to create his sound. So really, That's the secret recipe. Black people. We the secret recipe to American culture. Black people. So, with that said, she allegedly had a long-standing entanglement with the great Fletcher Henderson, which is interesting, right? So it is what it is. But so, with that said, you got a little spice. So why is she not a household name? Where is the movie on Eunice Carter? And don't get please don't let Lena Waithe or Casey Lemons, who else that don't let anybody associate with the Harriet movie or with Queen and Slim touch this project. Because like I said, she was into black men. Her husband was a black man. Matter of fact, I believe her husband was one of the first black dentists in New York. This is Eunice Carter. Eunice Carter, her husband was one of the first black dentists in New York, I think. I mean, make sure I get it right. Real. So I hope y'all enjoying this show. Hunton married Leslie Carter Sr., who was one of the first African American dentists in New York. They lived for many years in Harlem, Manhattan. The couple's only child, Leslie Carter Jr., graduated from college and law school. He practiced law and later worked in the John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson presidential administrations as a political appointee. Leslie Carter Jr. had 5 children, one of whom is author and Yale law professor Stephen L. Carter, who published a biography in 2018 about Eunice Carter entitled Invisible, the forgotten story of the black woman lawyer who took down America's most powerful mobster. In this biography of his paternal grandmother, Professor Carter includes the possibility of a long-running affair with jazz musician Fletcher Henderson. The biography also notes the imprisonment of Eunice's brother, W. Alpheus Hunton Jr., for his communist beliefs and the consequent estrangement between the two siblings. It happens, man. Siblings, you grow up close and then y'all fall apart about all this other stuff. But I just read her son, amazing, produced amazing children. That's black excellence. That's like they broke them generational curses long ago. You understand what I'm saying? This is amazing. Even Paul Robeson, his father was a former slave. He was a preacher up in New Jersey. And Paul Robeson speaks over 20 different languages, man. Singer, amazing voice. Our people are something else, and we should be celebrating our people, like the Eunice Carters and the Paul Robesons. This is amazing. So I hope that I'm gonna read that book. I got a lot of books on my reading list. I don't think y'all would mind if I take a hiatus and get my mind right. Really have benefited from not having my phone. Either I miss my iPhone, like it's been kind of crazy, not having a phone during the holidays because I had plans on calling people and connecting. But I'm just putting it out there, y'all. My phone got ran over by cars on one of the busiest streets of Memphis. My bad. Hopefully they'll be rectified next week, in the first week of December. But yeah. So she ended up dying, actually, I believe, in 1970. Let's see, she died January 25th, 1970, but she was born July 16th, 1899. She died January 25th, 1970. So she was 70 years old or young. So man, that's amazing. 70. She lived an amazing life. The Bible said, good life guaranteed with 70. That's 70 years. She did a lot of living in those 70 years. She didn't waste no breath or no time on this earth. Amazing force of nature. Eunice Roberts of Hunton Carter. And I first heard about Eunice Carter, really, I guess, I don't know if I first heard about, but I really paid attention to her when I went to the Las Vegas Organized Crime Museum in Las Vegas. And really, pricey ticket for what it is, but I'd say one of the better museums I've ever been to. That Mafia Museum or Organized Crime Museum they got in Las Vegas. One of the best museums I've ever been to, and really worth the price of admission. There's so much in there that you got to go there more than once. But they said before this COVID mess, they had some interesting programs bringing in authors and to talk about organized crime. Even folks that lived the life come through. And one of my things, I went there back in 2017. I really did want to meet Bugsy Siegel's daughter, his eldest daughter. I think it is his eldest daughter. She was living in Vegas at the time, and I said, "Man, let me try to look her up and see if I can meet with her and do a little quick interview." She ended up dying actually that year, 2017. Later on, she was in a nursing home, I believe, but she ended up dying. But, Bugsy Siegel actually owned, from my understanding, 800 acres of what's now known as the Las Vegas Strip. He owned 800 acres, and he left a lot of that land to his daughter. They ended up selling it, her and her husband. I mean, imagine how much that land is worth today. He owned 800 acres of land that became the Vegas Strip. So Bugsy took some risk. He paid for it with his life, but he was right on the money about Vegas, right? Boom. But imagine if he was allowed to live. They would have cashed in on that 800-acre investment. He's probably one of the wealthiest men in the world, maybe. I don't know. Ain't my call. But anyway, I hope that I did the sister justice in this interview. If you like the words from Brother Herb, please subscribe to We All Be TV. You can spread the word and also subscribe to We All Be TV. You want to support this God work, this ministry. You could donate. You got the Cash App, $R2C2H2. That's the Cash App, $R2C2H2. You could do a PayPal or Google Pay. Email r2c2h2@gmail.com. That's email r2c2h2, @gmail.com. You can Venmo your support at r2c2h2. That's r2c2h2. You can buy artivist art, r2c2h2.com. That's r2c2h2.com. You can wear artivist art. You can look, if you're on YouTube, look below the description box. There's a shelf of some of our wares. You go to our Teespring, official Teespring website. That's R2C2H2's place. And check us out. I'll be updating with more designs soon. I want to thank everybody who's been very patient with me in terms of my phone situation, in terms of a lot of things. I appreciate you all. Always looking forward to hearing back from y'all on feedback. Things like I said with Brother Malcolm, to paraphrase him, without critics you won't have success. So it's good to have constructive criticism and just give feedback. You taking the time to tell me about what you think about the podcast and about the information and adding to the narrative. I love it. I read a lot of the comments. Don't always respond to everybody, but I do read a lot of the comments left on these videos. And it helps me to open up my mind and look at, things from a different perspective a lot of times. But like Baba Dick said, once you wear or have your pair of magic glasses, you can't force nobody to see what you see. Do you see what I see? A lot of times y'all don't, and sometimes y'all do. So, yeah, I love it. Thank you all for being very patient. In the words of the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing. The one I'm trying to pushing. You see how it works? Thank you all. Blessings. One love.
Hey everybody, this is Brother Ron. I am asking you all to do me a big favor. Think about supporting the We All Be movement. Your donation is tax deductible. The We All Be Group Incorporated is a recognized 501c3. And I'm just asking you all because I want to keep on bringing y'all quality work through the way that I know how to do best. And I'm going to sing my praises and toot my horn. A lot of y'all were not hip to Dick Gregory until Brother Ron brought him on the We All Be platform, until that jingle review we did. Y'all seen another side of Judge Joe Brown, and Judge Joe Brown's message has been amplified. But it was We All Be that brought Judge Joe Brown to y'all back in 2014. and so many others. And we cover so many things. So help us out so we can help you all. Peace.